What's going on, everybody? So, one of the things I really like is when people reach out to me and say, "Hey, what are your thoughts on this?" Or, "Will you do a video on that? Because I'm really curious and interested in this particular topic." And without a doubt, the thing that is regularly asked and people are most interested in me doing a video on is more with my dad. So remember, my dad is the one who bought that shoebox at the estate sale and we went through the cards together. Really early on in my channel, I had a video where we looked through some of his collection together and just kind of hung out and talked. You've probably seen him at some of the card show videos where he's always kind of hanging out with me and we traveled to shows together. And what I decided to do was I called him up and I said, "What if I come by and just ask you some questions and record it and then share it with everyone? Because they want to hear from you, Dad." She said, "Okay." I know he's got a little bit of an allergy thing going on right now, so he's feeling a little under the weather, but he's still cool with me coming on over. So in the spirit of my midweek 5 questions, I came up with 5 questions for my dad that I'm going to ask him. And then at the end, just for fun, I made a bracket of 16 baseball cards that I know he really, really likes. And we're going to do a little bracket buster here where he's going to go through and pick his all-time favorite card. Not most valuable card, but favorite card. So that's what we're going to do. I'm heading over to my dad's, 5 questions for him, and then at the end, what is his all-time favorite baseball card? All right, just got to my dad's house. Gonna head inside. Got some questions for him, so this is gonna be fun. All right, we are here with my dad. I have 5 questions for him. Similar to my midweek questions that you all ask of me, I have 5 questions for him. So that's what we're gonna do. And we're gonna go ahead and start this off with our very first question right now. When you started collecting, you first went into set building. You started with the 1960 set and then went on to the 1959 set. Now you only collect singles and have since sold off your sets. Why did you change, and would you ever consider being a set builder again?
Well, actually, at this point, I'm on my 4th different set building or card collecting event. When I was young, I collected cards and I had no idea of keeping sets or anything else. It was just, whatever. Whenever I opened a pack, whoever it was, I had certain players that I was hoping I'd get and things like that. And I would arrange them into teams and rubber bands and shoe boxes. And that was like my first experience with baseball cards. There's in one of your earlier videos, you talked about the fact that we found one of my cards in a card shops, which let me know what happened to my original cards. Second version was when my kids started doing baseball cards, and so I figured, well, we'll take them to shows. And we went to big show after big show, and then I got to the point where I got the bug myself, and I wanted to recreate the sets I had as a kid, which was 58, 59, 60, and a little bit of 61 were the ones that I collected as a kid. And then at the end of the 61 season, the last series, the ones that the All-Star cards, where the players' faces were coming out of a newspaper, I thought those were kind of hokey. And now I kind of like them, but at the time I thought they were hokey, and I sort of just stopped collecting at that point. So again, that's the original card collecting. The thing with my kids is we would go to card shows, and I started first. I bought like one card. I wanted a Mickey Mouse card, and I bought that first. And I said, well, maybe I'll just like put a whole Yankee team set together of the 1960s, because that was a set I remembered as a kid. And so I put a team set together. And then, as this hobby is, I got to the point where I was really having a good time with it. So I just said, well, maybe I'll just put the whole set together. And that's where the set building, came in. And then after I finished the 60 set, I didn't want to stop. So I went to another set that I collected as a kid, which was the 59s. And I put that set together. So I had that complete set. Both those were completed. As I think we said earlier, and when you talked to me before, 58s were a really tough card to get in good enough condition, because when I put my sets together, I wanted them to be really, really nice sets. And it was hard to find 58s that were in really good enough condition for what I wanted. So I didn't really put that one together. I did have certain players that I got, Ernie Banks and Hank Aaron and Mickey Mantle. I got those cards, but I didn't complete the whole set. After I completed those sets and I got to the point, I was on PSA, I had the number 2 PSA registry set. I had an 8.0 1960 set. And that was quite an undertaking, but it took time to do it. I was very particular about what I picked. I would go to some of the long-time card people. They would have stacks of really nice cards at that point, because in those days you could find nice commons when you went to card shows, because people weren't they weren't grading those or anything, and people were more interested in the star cards than those. And so I picked up just cards that I thought were like pristine, that I thought they were fantastic cards. And I wanted my whole set to be that way. My 59 set and my 60 set were pretty pristine. So then it got to the point where they were so valuable that I decided that there were things that were more important than having this pristine set. So I sold them off and did things that family related, and to make it to the point where family's always first. And so what I decided at that point, because they were worth a lot of money because they were in high grade, and so what I thought I would do is make the money and then go back to what I originally wanted to do, was just have raw cards. Because originally, my first go around with this, I had raw cards. And when PSA grading came around, I was like anti-grading. I just, why do I have this really cool card and I'm going to encapsulate it and, not be able to handle it. Not that I handled them a lot, because I wanted to keep them nice, but it was nice to be able to take them out and look at them, carefully, so they kept the same kind of condition they were in. But it got to the point, they were so valuable because of the grade that was on them. And I'd see a card that was in a thing, and the dealers were asking crazy money for them. And I said, well, I have to grade my cards so that they will have the value that they should have because of how good a condition that they were in. And so I scraped the money together. Back in the old days in PSA, you could do like a bulk thing for I think it was like $6. You could send in a large quantity. You had to wait a long time, but they would grade them over a long period of time. And that's how I got them in the PSA 8 condition by, $6 a card kind of thing. And so back to where I am now, which is raw cards again. I've had some kind of bad experiences with some of the grading companies at this point. And it's really been a good thing for me, because I don't think about the grade of what somebody else might think about it, because I think I'm a better grader of cards than the ones that are actually putting grades on them. And so if it's pleasing to my eye, I keep it. If it's not pleasing to my eye, I don't buy it.
So do you think you'll ever go back to card set building?
Never.
You'll never do a set again?
No. What I want to do now, I've recreated my original set that was all graded. And now I'm just getting other cards. I get some that are right now I'm trying to get some that are a little older, that I ever collected, because there's some older sets that I really like, and so that's the fun thing for me now. I feel a little weird paying almost as much in some cases for cards that I sold in PS8 holders for something in 5 or 6 now.
You were already in the hobby before PSA opened in 1991. You've seen the hobby before grading as well as being aware of the status of grading now. Do you think grading has been good or bad for the hobby, and why?
That's a good question. Um, in some ways, it's good, but I mean, it makes it so that a person that's buying something online has a clear idea of what they're buying when they can't hold it in their hand and look at it. So that part's a good thing. But grading that isn't consistent, in my eyes, is kind of worthless. And it's definitely not consistent. I've seen cards in a lot of different kinds of holders that didn't deserve the grade they got in terms of how high they were, and a lot lately that have gotten a lot lower grades than I think they should have had. So again, that's just my opinion. I'm sure other people have a lot, but having been in the hobby for as long as I have, and I've seen the grading come in, it makes the interaction online smoother and easier. So that part, it probably is a good thing.
You mean buying and selling?
Right.
So it makes buying and selling easier, but some of the inconsistencies make it difficult.
Yeah. Uh, if it's inconsistent, it's worse, because people are buying something that isn't as good as something that they are buying. If the grade's higher than it should be, then they're paying too much for a card that isn't that great, and that's not a good thing.
So if you could go back to 1991 and you could prevent grading from happening, would you? Or would you let it go as it has?
At this particular time, I'm kind of down on grading. So the answer for me a couple years ago or 20 years ago, I benefited from the fact that I had such nice cards and they graded well.
Sure.
But now, it just seems a little odd that you have somebody else decide how great a card you are instead of you just looking at it yourself and deciding for yourself. And I think at one point it was about eye appeal with the grading system, and now it's about something different. It seems like they're putting things under such heavy magnification. If you can't see it by the naked eye, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't exist. Because I'm only going to look at it, I'm not going to get out my cards and go like, well, I think I'll look at my cards today, and won't look at them under heavy magnification. Right. You look at them, you hold them up in your hand and you look at them, and you enjoy them. But the idea that something that you can't even see with the naked eye drops it 2 or 3 grades, that makes grading useless.
You've been to the National quite a few times. How many times have you attended the National, and what advice would you give to someone who is attending their first National this summer?
Wow. I have been to, the original question was how many times have I been to it? I would say 7, maybe 8. A lot of times they hit around the time of my kids' birthdays, so those years I didn't go. But whenever I could, it fit within the family of the framework of the family unit in terms of the things that were going on there, I would go. And I really enjoyed them. One thing that was an advantage for me is I got to the point with my particular collection of the years that I was doing, that I got to the point where I had a knowledge in those particular sets that a lot of people don't have. And by knowing things like population reports on certain cards, I could go through a stack of really nice commons and pull one out that I knew the population was really low and get it graded. And then when, if I already had it, I'd put it online. and it would sell for a lot of money because there were very few of them out there. And so that was the thing that was funny. It was like a treasure hunt for me. You know, I would be looking through the commons as much as I was looking through anything else, because there was always something to look for just about everywhere. The other thing about going to the National is when you see the card, you buy it, because you may have trouble finding your way back to it. You know, the place is, you know, immense. And, you know, you can make a mental note of a certain, you know, you can write down a certain note of this dealer and this was the card. You can do that a little bit, but it's big. And you can lose track. There were a few times where I thought I remembered who had a certain card, and then I never found it again. Of course, they could have sold it, I suppose, or I just never got back to the right person. So if you're going to your first one, I would say either buy it when you see it if you like it, or make a real mental note of where it was you saw that card and what the card was, so that you can make sure you get back and have a chance to buy it.
I know how much you love baseball, history, sports cards, finances, investing, and everything about collecting cards. Who are the players and sets that you're currently targeting to add to your collection, and why?
I've noticed that there's some cards of some really good players that are not as expensive as I thought they were going to be. And I've been loading up on Willie Mays cards, and I want to get more Hank Aaron cards. I have all the 58, 59, 16, 61, I have all those. But I'm trying to get other years of Hank Aaron. Clemente, I've bought a lot of Clemente's lately. I really like Clemente a lot. That is a card that he's almost like a folk hero because of the way he hit it. He got his 3,000th hit, and then doing a humanitarian effort, he lost his life doing things for other people. So you know, that to me, that just makes him special. So I want Clemente cards, but that is the one card that even towards the end of his career is still a pretty expensive card if you want it in nice condition. Now you can buy you know, 1s and 2s and 3s and stuff for reasonable prices, but that's a card that seems to hold up throughout his entire run, more so than most people, you know, more so than even Mays. And when you get towards the end of Mays, it starts dropping off. You know, when he was a Met, and his last one is bought a nice 72 Mays the other day for $40. That's a really nice card. You know, there aren't any Clementes out there that you could buy a really nice Clemente for $40. They're all up there. And the same goes with Aaron, particularly like if he went to where he was playing with the Brewers and stuff, those cards aren't nearly as expensive.
So Clemente, Mays, Aaron.
Mantle, of course, Mantle. I'm a Mickey Mantle fan. I'm just like, you know, when I had uniforms as a kid, I always wanted to get number 7 because he was my favorite player of all. And part of that's because when I was a kid, CBS Sports was the owner of the Yankees. And so when they had the Saturday game of the week, a very high percentage of the time, it was the Yankee game. And so I could literally watch them play every weekend, whereas there wasn't a lot of baseball games on TV. But the Yankees were on TV more than anyone else because of the fact that one of the 2 networks that showed baseball games owned the Yankees at the time. Anyway, Mantle is my number 1 guy. They are really expensive, but I've seen a few lately. I bid on one last night that was, I was the second highest bidder, and so I've seen a few lately, and maybe because the market maybe is just softening a little bit. Maybe they're coming down a little bit. There's a guy that I bought quite a few cards from that had a couple of Mantles that looked like something that, you know, I don't want to spend tons of money on these cards.
Why? Because like the guys you just listed, none of them do you have their first or second or third year card.
Right.
None of
No.
Yeah, you don't have the first, second, or third year of any of those guys.
No.
So is having a 64 Hank Aaron just as cool as having a 54 Hank Aaron to you?
No,
Then why not buy them?
I don't know. I have to get myself to do that. I do need to buy some. I want something to be pleasing to the eye, and it takes quite a bit of money to get to a point where something's pleasing to the eye that's also that old. If I can find something that was pleasing to the eye, and I feel weird about spending that much money on cards anymore, because it's I enjoy it, and like I said, I've reproduced my entire childhood collection up the stars. And
would you ever want to have a Hank Aaron rookie?
Sure.
Then why not buy one?
Well, you never know. Maybe someday it could happen.
No, it's not going to happen, and I don't know why. Outside of when you were a kid, you've been collecting cards for about 35 years. Out of all of those years, what are your 3 most memorable card deals?
Oh.
Memorable. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily the biggest deal, but most memorable deals.
That's an interesting question. When I got the 58 mantle, I bought that at the National. I was in Cleveland that year, and that was sort of the first mantle card I had as a kid, and I got it in a PSA 8 holder, and it was a beautiful card, and that was a big deal to me. That was like, this is the best card of the first year I ever collected.
Do you remember what you paid for it?
I paid $2,500 for it.
And what do you think that thing's worth now?
It's worth a lot more because I ended up selling it.
Why did you sell it?
Because I had some family things that I was trying to accumulate money from, and I had just moved away from I hadn't been doing much with the card collecting for several years, and so it wasn't a priority to me, and it was worth a ton of money. Now it's worth 3 times that, but hindsight is always 20/20.
So how long did you have that card?
I bought it originally. I bought a, let's see. What was your question again? I'm sorry.
How long did you have it?
Oh, the one that I got at the National? I had it quite a while. Yeah, I had it at least 10 years, maybe more. I had a long time. It was the number one card that I had that I wanted more than any other, and it was like I said, a big deal the day I got it. There were a couple of guys that I had met through the internet. They were card collectors, and they were there when I bought it, and it was kind of a big deal that we all kind of just enjoyed me. There was 2 other guys that I met online that were collectors that were there when I bought it, and it was pretty cool.
And okay, so there's one, your 58 mantle PSA 8, mm-hmm. and you now have a different mantle, 58 mantle.
It's in a 5.
So you downgraded to a 5, basically.
Right.
Okay. Did you buy the 5 right away, or did you wait a while before you bought your 5?
I don't think it was all that long afterwards. I don't remember exactly, but it wasn't all that long afterwards. I kind of decided that I wanted the cards. I just didn't need to have them in 8 holders, and I wanted them to be raw again. Now that particular one that I have now is not raw, and because of the fact that it's worth so much not raw than it would be raw, there's sometimes at this point, when you have a card in a 5 or up holder, it's really hard to take them out, because I did take a ton of cards. When those cards, I was buying star cards from the 58s, 59s, and 60s that were in 5 holders that in my opinion had great eye appeal, and so I would buy them for pennies compared to what they're now. I mean, the mantle I bought, I paid less than $200, and I think
for a 58 mantle and a 5.
5, yeah, and I think not that long ago, it was like 1,200. I think it's probably right around 1,000, or maybe even a smidgen under that right now. But
okay, so take me to the next two biggest deals that were memorable.
one was memorable. There's a guy that I used to buy cards from all the time. His name's Paul Stark, and he's still in the hobby now and still got his own website and the whole thing, and he sells cards like crazy. And
he's a dealer.
he's a
That
dealer.
would be at the National.
He was a dealer, and he was at all the big ones in San Francisco, and he was always at the National and all those things. And so I was putting the 59 set together, and in 59, the last series of the 59 set is like, just really rare to find in good condition. First of all,
mostly off center, right?
they're off center a lot, and they didn't produce as many. And so, the last series in all those years, except for 58s, they had a few more in the 58s, but the 59s and the 60s and the 61s, they produced a lot less of the last series. And so I went up to him, and he just made a big buy from some, and he had a bunch of really nice centered ones. And I looked through them, and I pulled them out, and he knew I was going to spend some money, but anyway, I bought a lot of them that were clearly 8s or better, and really rare, and they were all centered and perfect corners. I mean, he knew I was paying up for them. So anyway, we finished that deal, and I didn't tell you the beginning of the story. When I got there that morning, I was looking around at cards, and one of the guys that was running the show was a promoter. One of the promoters, he says, "So, what are you looking for?" And he's just making conversation. He says, "Well, I got a present for you. I've got $200 worth of credit that you can use at any dealer in the whole place." And I went like, "Wow, that's really cool." So when I went over to Paul's thing, I bought all those sweet cards, and then when I was done, I handed him the $200 in vouchers, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, you got vouchers to get all these with," because he knew that was
So
top.
how many would you say you bought?
I would say I bought 20 in the last series that are just, a couple of them I sold after they got 8s, sold for $100 a piece. So there's the $200 right there, just selling 2 of them.
So you bought about 20 of them, and you paid $200 for them in credit?
Right.
So they were free?
They were free.
And what would you say you got
out of that whole deal?
Out of those 20 cards, what do you think you ended up getting back when you sold them?
At least $1,500. Minimum $1,500.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
In those days, again, you could send those cards in for $6.
Right.
Get in an 8-holder.
Okay.
So it didn't cost anything to grade.
I've never heard that story. So now the third most memorable deal that you can think of. I think I know what this one's going to be, but go ahead.
Because you give me like a little hint, because I'm going to be kicking myself that I don't pick this.
I think your Montana deal.
Oh yes, yeah. In fact, there's actually two more. But anyway, the Montana deal. Yeah, there was a guy that was selling. This was before football had really kind of taken off, and it was about I guess it was about 1990 or in that range.
It was right when Montana went to the Chiefs. Right before Montana went to the Chiefs, at the very tail end of his career.
Right. So I'm going along, and this guy has a stack of Montana rookies like this. And he was asking $15 a piece for them. And they were in really, really nice condition. And he said, so I looked through them, and I was going, there were a lot. I should have bought them all, but I said, I was just, at the time, I didn't know that the card was going to jump like it did. I mean, the card went crazy later on. But I got it down to a couple, and I go like, man, these are two. He says, well, why don't you buy them both? You can have them both for $25. So he gave me a $5 discount to buy the second one.
So you bought 2 Montana rookies for $25, and then what happened?
And so then I kept them both because, again, I was kind of a raw card guy at that time. So I kept them, protected them. And we started doing card shows. And at one point, there was one that had like a really tiny imperfection of the two that I saw later. It just had like a kind of like a little tiny little groove, which I'm sure came right off the manufacturer.
Sure.
It wasn't something that somebody did to it. Which, again, you start talking to me about PSA, and then I'll tell you what I think about things like that. But anyway, so I decided to sell it. So I sold. I did a card show, and I put $200 on it, and the guy bought it for $200. So now I've got I got one Montana rookie. I've got $175 profit, and at one point I decided, well, I'm going to get this graded. So I had card shop people that were going down ahead of the first few days of the National that year, and I gave them the Montana. I said, well, I want you to have this graded, and he had I gave him my 60 Mantle that I had bought from him, a 60 Willie McCovey rookie, and the Joe Montana, and I had him send those in. And of the three, the Montana came back as a 9. The McCovey, they said there was something wrong with it, so they didn't grade it. And the Mantle came back, and they said there was something wrong with it, and they didn't grade it. And so they complained about the McCovey, and they looked at it again because it was perfect. It was perfectly centered. It didn't have any of those. The McCovey rookie has those little black dots that
the print marks.
Yeah.
Like they just trim ski.
Yeah, and they reevaluated it, and then they put it in a 9 holder.
So they weren't going to grade it, and then the guy you gave it to submit it complained, and they gave it a 9.
They gave it a 9. Now again, this is back in '90. All these companies are under new ownership since then, but that's what happened. And so I was bummed about the Mantle, but I was doing cartwheels about the McCovey, because the McCovey was just a spectacular card, and I wish I still had it now. It's like hindsight is always 20/20. That card probably is between $8,000 and $10,000 card now, and I didn't get anywhere near that.
So what ended up happening with the Montana?
So I had the Montana in my collection, and I started looking, and they had it became just this incredibly hot card. I mean, it was selling like for $14,000 or $15,000. And I looked
in a 10.
In a 10. Mine was in a 9.
Right.
And I'm looking at this, and I'm going like, this card is flawless. So I sent it back into PSA.
How long ago was this? 5 or 6 years ago, wasn't it?
How much?
I was going to say 5 or 6.
Yeah, it's at least that. It's probably more.
Okay.
Probably more. And so I sent it back in. I said,
So you submit it for a regrade.
I submitted for a regrade, and I didn't even put insurance for it to become a 10. I put it in. I mean, it was a 10. It just wasn't in a 10 holder.
Sure.
It was a spectacular card. It's as nice as any other card that I've ever had.
Yeah.
In terms of condition, in terms of centering, print blemishes, corners. It was just a perfect card. And so I sent it in to him, and I paid. It was a shorter turnover time because it was, and I figured, you know what? If it stays a 9, okay, but if it becomes a 10, it's now worth 10 times as much as it's worth now.
Right.
So I said, well, this is one of those that makes sense. So he sent it back in, and I got about a week later, I got a phone call, and I says, well, you didn't put enough insurance on this.
You mean you didn't put it? You didn't submit it at a level high enough for the value.
Right.
Okay.
And that's because I put it for the 9 value, because I'm not going to pay, because it was a lot more money. It was like several hundred more dollars.
Sure.
So I'm not gonna pay several hundred more dollars and then have them send it back in the same holder.
Right.
And so, and I go like, are you saying that the grade is different now than it was before? And she says, yeah. And I said, well, how much do I owe you? And they told me what I owed them for it was like $300 or so more.
Sure.
But I knew I was going to get a 10 back.
Well, you also know that PSA doesn't do 9.5s.
Right.
So it's a 10. If
Right.
it's not a 9, it's a different grade.
Right.
It's a 10.
Right, even a 9.5 would be worth more than the
Sure.
$300.
Sure.
But anyway, so
for $25, you sold the first mantle and you're up 175, and you have the second mantle,
right,
which gets a 9, and then you send in for a regrade and it gets a 10, and it's now worth over 10,000.
mm-hmm.
That's a pretty memorable deal, right?
Yeah, that was a memorable deal. I was like, it's hard when you're in this situation to come up with exactly.
Because they didn't prep you with what the questions were going to be.
No.
So you're on the spot.
Yeah. So
On the
I
spot.
think at this point it's quite obvious that I didn't get the questions in advance, or I would have had a lot better answers.
No, that's not.
All right, so I thought it would be fun to try to figure out what my dad's all-time favorite card was. So I chose 16 cards that I know he's either a big fan of the player or the card itself. Put it in a bracket and see which card comes out on top. This should be fun. Check it out.
So here's basically the deal. I'm going to give you 2 cards. If you could have one of the 2 cards, it's not based on value. Mm-hmm. It's based on which card you'd rather have if they were all the same value.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it's not about, I'm going to take the expensive one because I could sell it and then buy the other one. It's which card do you like the most?
Oh, okay.
All right, so the first part in the bracket is the 1956 Hank Aaron or the 1953 Mickey Mantle.
This might get a little Mantle heavy, but I would say the 53 Mantle, even though I love 56s.
Okay. 58 Willie Mays or 58 World Series faux card with Hank Aaron and Mickey Mantle.
Oh. I consider Willie Mays to be one of my 2 Grail cards in the 58. I just love that card. That's really hard because I really would like to have that 58 card, which I have never had. And but I'm going to have to go with the Mays.
1956 Yogi Berra or 1955 Jackie Robinson.
Gotta go Jackie Robinson. I mean, I'd like to have the first baseball card I ever saw was in 1956 Yogi Berra. I was over at a friend's house, and he was getting out of his brother's closet, and they were getting toys and stuff there. I'm only like 8 years old, or maybe even less than that. And he pulled out a card that was Yogi Berra, and it was his 1956 card. So I love that card, but Jackie Robinson has got to have that card. Someday I'm going to have that card.
1960 Willie McCovey or 1956 Mickey Mantle.
The Mantle. The McCovey, I've had half dozen of those, and I've never had the Mantle card. Plus, that's my favorite Mantle card.
1955 Roberto Clemente rookie.
Okay.
1953 Satchel Paige.
Oh, jeez. That is really rough. I would love to have both of those cards. Okay, Satchel Paige, or remind the old man what the other one is.
Roberto Clemente rookie.
I don't think that Roberto Clemente's rookie is his best card, so I'm going to go Satchel Paige.
Okay, 1933 Gowdy Lou Gehrig or 1956 Willie Mays.
I don't know that I've even seen that many of the Lou Gehrig card, so I'm not sure what it's like. I'd love to have a Lou Gehrig card. But just in terms of the appearance of the card, I would go with the Mays, just because I like the appearance of that card.
Okay, 1958 Hank Aaron, 1952 Jackie Robinson.
52 Jackie Robinson. Is that a Bowman?
No, 52 tops. The 52 tops card.
Of Jackie Robinson. You're going to have to let me have a picture of it.
The red background.
Oh, wow. Not very familiar with that card. So it's the 58 Aaron or that?
Or the 52 Jackie Robinson.
I like, there's other cards of Jackie Robinson I like better, so I'll go with the Hank Aaron because I don't think I have one of those in
Okay,
there.
1958 tops, Mickey Mantle. 1953 tops, Whitey Ford.
Mantle.
Okay, so now we're going to the second round of the bracket.
So we're down to 8 now?
We're down to 8.
Okay.
1953 tops, Mickey Mantle. Or
11.
1958 tops, Willie Mays.
Oh, man. This is hard.
That's
I would say
that's
this
the
is.
point.
I think this is the hardest one so far. I love the 53 Mantle. I have to go with the Mantle.
Okay. 1955 tops, Jackie Robinson. Or 1956 tops, Mickey Mantle.
Yeah, you can't put Jackie Robinson up against Mickey Mantle. That's just not fair.
Well, eventually.
It was going to happen eventually. Well, the 56 Mantle, but I want them both real bad.
Okay. 1953 Satchel Paige. Or 1956 Willie Mays.
53 Satchel Paige or the. This is just about a coin flip. I love both those cards. I'm gonna go Satchel Paige.
1958 tops Hank Aaron. Or 1958 tops Mickey Mantle.
Mantle. So now we're in the semifinals.
We're now down to 4.
3 of our Mantles, aren't they?
Correct.
Oh god.
1953 tops Mickey Mantle. Or 1956 tops Mickey Mantle.
My favorite card of Mantle is the 56, so I'm gonna go that.
56 tops.
Yeah.
1953 tops Satchel Paige. Or 1958 tops Mickey Mantle.
Well, I just love that Satchel Paige card. I'm gonna go 58 Mickey Mantle.
1956 tops Mickey Mantle. Or 1958 tops Mickey Mantle.
56.
56. All right. Well, there you have it.
Yeah, I know that 58 has always been my kind of Grail card, but I'd rather have that 56.
Yeah.
I love that card.